Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who chooses to join us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. You go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner. It will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files or shows just like this one from that web page that has the potential to serve as a powerful tutorial for you on how to get the maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible, if you choose to listen to them, even repeatedly. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so. You can go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID code 853-2357-4173. We're live most weekdays from 11 to noon Central Time. And again, the meeting ID, whether you're calling in on your phone to one of the Zoom's numbers or you're opening up a browser window, the meeting ID is the same. It's 853-2357-4173. And then if you're just calling in on the phone, the way to toggle mute is *6 on your phone, so you can mute and unmute yourself at will. Alternatively, you can send us an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or comment from you through the email, we'll address it on the Internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that. It just makes it so much easier for us to live into our intention with this work. And the intention with this work is to be a service. So please let us know how we can be of service. I have had a busy morning already. I'm working on editing and uploading the interview with Agatha Peters, who is a Nigerian American who works with people in trauma and has written the book Trapped in Their Script: Reclaim Your Life from a Narcissistic Parent or Cultural Expectations. And probably about in 2 weeks that'll get published live. And it's just another very important aspect to look at when we're trying to help people who've been through trauma. Sometimes, what is culturally acceptable in one realm is completely unacceptable in another culture or realm. And so the same approach isn't always going to work. You can't just tell people, hey, why don't you just set boundaries with these people? Or, hey, why don't you just do an assertive communication with this person or that person? And Agatha has some very powerful insights into how the very strong cross-generational family patterns are played out culturally, as well as the way Dr. Michael Ryce talks about them with the internal dynamic and the energies that we carry in us that are off the mark, that we may not have had anything to do with creating them. They may have come from the energetic inheritance of our bloodline. And so, whether it's an inside job or an outside job, carrying around that stuff from the past, not a very good thing for our flexibility, for our health, for our productivity, etc. So I'll just remind people before I start up here reading again that at any point in time, if you've got a comment or a question, we actively welcome it. We view it as an addition and a complement to whatever we're doing here. Even if it seems like I'm on a roll or in the middle of reading something, please feel free to unmute or use the little icon that says, you raise your hand, asking to be recognized. And with that said, I'll return to the reading of the book of One Love, One Life, One Journey, written by Guy Finley with Dr. Ellen Dickstein. Where we left off was a section titled The One Life-Changing Secret That You Can't Afford to Miss. And here he starts with a quote by William Shakespeare that says, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." And Guy writes, most of us have probably heard that quote or something like it at some time or another, but have we stopped to really ponder it so we can understand the power it holds? This quote is telling us that the meaning a moment has for us is a direct consequence of what we brought with us into that moment. Our expectations, our wants and not wants, our automatic reactions based on past experience. Our consciousness turns the moment into whatever it is for us. The quote also implies that if we could meet the moment from a different consciousness, a different understanding, it would mean something completely different to us. For example, let's say we're sitting in a restaurant and the waitress is rude to us. If we entered the moment with a belief that our well-being depended upon everyone, in parentheses, even a stranger who we'll never see again, close parentheses, we believe that our safety is based on everyone treating us with respect and that we're owed that, then for us, this will be a bad experience. Then we'll get angry, maybe even exchange some harsh words with her. We'll pay the bill without leaving a tip. We'll have a sour, grumpy attitude for the rest of the day. And maybe we'll remember that bad feeling every time we pass that restaurant in the future. But the question arises, did it have to be that way? What if instead of resisting the rudeness of the waitress and being drawn down into her dark state that we so become negative too, what if we could be present enough to actually see and feel ourselves, for ourselves, what that waitress is experiencing in that moment? we would know something of her pain and have some insight into her bad behavior. Our awareness of why she acts as she does keeps us from adding fuel to the fire, so that, should we choose, we're free to maybe even try to joke with her a bit and lift her spirit. She may remain negative, but we've done no harm. And we've given her every possible opportunity to shake off her suffering. Or maybe we notice she seems tired and sad. So we say something kind. And she blossoms in the light of your good intention. All these different possibilities for what the moment means to us, all based on what we brought into the moment. It was our thinking that made it so. Here's another quote that makes the same point from Henry David Thoreau. And he says, "I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of a man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. It is something to be able to paint a particular picture or to carve a statue, and so to make a few objects beautiful. But it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, which morally we can do. To affect the quality of the day, that is the highest art." It is something to be able to paint a picture or carve a statue and make some objects beautiful, but it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, which we morally can do. And therefore, to affect the quality of the day, that is the highest art. And that just puts me in mind of the quote from Abraham, where Abraham says, "Your most important creation in any given moment is your emotion in that moment." So Guy Finley goes on here and he writes, "The quality of our life, for better or worse, is determined by one thing, the level of our consciousness. The beauty of understanding this timeless principle is that with the proper interior work, our level of consciousness can be changed." It just comes back to the quote that I repeat fairly often, which is just a distillation of what I've gotten from the Way of Mastery. And it is, I'd like to tell you two things about yourself. The first is, if you're like most of us human beings, you have the infinite capacity to choose the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment. The second thing I'd like to tell you is that if you're like most of us human beings, it is your choice of the focus for your conscious awareness in each new present moment that actually creates your experience of life in that moment. Your level of consciousness can be changed. You can choose to change your level of consciousness. You can choose to ask to have your level of consciousness be changed by something that's more integrated and more expansive and more inclusive than your little 9-bit mind. So the writing goes on here in Guy Finley's book with Dr. Ellen Dickstein. The section is titled "Insights into Making a Revolutionary Inner Leap into Higher Awareness." And Guy writes, "We are the ground of revelation, and what is revealed is that what lives within us is everything we're looking for. We are the ground of revelation, and what is revealed is that what lives within us is everything we are looking for." So this harkens back to the quote from St. Francis of Assisi, who said, "What you're looking for is what is looking." This is an inside job. We've been hoodwinked by our culture to believe it's all about the external and the purely material, but it's an inside job. So he writes, not as a motivational idea, not because someone says it, but as a fact that we're meant to discover as individuals for each and every one of us. But here we are having lunch with somebody and they say something and we get ready to react. Suddenly, we remember something. Wait a minute. Oh God, I'm ready to be me again. And if I stay me and I give you me, you're going to stay you. But I heard something. I heard that moment where I feel the disturbance, this is not an adversarial moment. It isn't life denying me something. It's life trying to give me something. What is life trying to give me? Oh, wait, that's right. I'm supposed to take my attention away from my irritation and place it within myself so that I see that the irritation has been revealed by the moment. The moment wants to give me something higher than what someone would give me if that someone believes they're right no matter what anyone else says. The moment wants to give me something that I can't get myself if I'm clinging to the idea that I'm right no matter what anyone else says. Guy goes on. In a moment like that, because of the light of awareness that is produced through such a conscious act, that man or woman is given the new understanding. It's not understanding in the sense of a new way to think towards life, but a new understanding in the sense that their very being has been transformed. There is an intimate moment spiritually where there is no longer this and that, where the nature that sees me different from you, the nature that sees a problem, the nature that sees that this moment has come to reveal that the answer to the situation is not to find a solution to the suffering, because the suffering only seemed to be produced by a situation, but rather it is to transcend the self that suffers over anything it sees as being outside of itself. Now, this is one of those long, long sentences with Guy Finley that gets a little bit convoluted, but the essence of it is he's tapped into the fact that we create a pattern of thoughts that we think is us. Right? I think I'm the great and powerful Dr. Hayes. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. I think I'm this psychologist in Northern Illinois. I think I know how a psychologist is supposed to react in this situation or that situation. And these thoughts about myself, I practice them so much that they literally become kind of an auto response. It's like the artificial intelligence. Michael Ryce has been playing around with this idea lately. That it's ignorance masquerading as intelligence. Right? That's what my 9-bit mind is. This thing that just churns, and it's all about the past. Right? What's in my mind is a collection of all of the events that I've taken in and the thoughts about it and the beliefs I've formulated ever since I had consciousness in this particular life. That constellation of thoughts is who I think of as me. But that constellation of thoughts is what generates all of the pain and emotional suffering that I ever experience. Contrary to the belief that my culture trains me to believe that my internal pain and suffering emotionally is caused by the events outside of me, not matching my image of what they should be, my goals, my ideals. But that's not the way it works. So what Guy is trying to say in this very, very dense paragraph is that in a moment, right before I start to react to a situation, I can remember, wait a minute, if I react the same way this time that I've reacted every other time this stuff happens, and I've been upset and stewed and fumed about it for days, if I stay that same person, you're going to react the way you always do, and we're going to go down the same path, and I don't want to do that. What if I just put on the brakes, and instead of thinking and speaking and acting from the patterns I've always reacted from, what if I can allow myself to be transformed by the revelation of all of this upset coming up in me? What if I can turn the focus inside? What if in this moment, there's an intimate moment spiritually where things aren't just the way I think of them and define them? What if it's entirely possible that I be transformed in this moment by whatever this moment reveals to me about my upset? What if I'm able to see that whatever I've labeled as a problem is really a moment that's come to reveal that the answer to the situation is not to find a solution to the suffering that seemed to be produced by this moment, but rather that I can transcend that self, my thoughts about myself that generate all of this pain and anger and suffering, because I realize it's not coming from outside of me. As soon as I take the focus of my attention away from the things outside of me and turn it inside of me, now I've opened up an infinite range of possibilities for dismantling my upset, even if nothing in the outside actuality changes. So Guy Finley writes on.
Hayes,
Go ahead.
I know I'm interrupting you, but you said it was okay. I have a weird, funny example of how much we are the creators of our whole life and how we feel and what we do in our lives. I was away for the weekend, and I won't go into what was all happening, but at night, I had this dream about you, and there were some funny things in it. But when I woke up, I had this feeling that I really wanted to talk to God, but I didn't know how to talk to God, but you were very much in my mind because I just had this dream. So I thought, okay, God, I'm going to plop Tim Hayes in here. Well, I'm really talking to you, but I'm talking to my idea of Tim Hayes, and somehow he says things very readily, so I hope I can imagine what he's going to say to me. So I had a session with you, and it was so good that I thought I could retire you in yourself during the day because I've just taken you into myself, and I can ask you questions, and you have wonderful answers that I need to hear. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you're entirely welcome. I probably need to hear them too, so send them over.
I had to just laugh because it was so helpful, and I thought, why didn't I know these things by myself? Well, I didn't until I pretended that you were telling me these things, and I had a wonderful session. It really was helpful. It shifted things. So I don't know who to thank here, but you're providing I don't know what it is. And I don't intend to drop off the radio show. I was thinking, do I need this radio show anymore? Well, the fact is I probably don't, but I like it. So here I am.
Well,
Just wanted to tell you.
And that's just perhaps, the best possible testimonial, because that's what we're talking about as our goal, right? To be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And we can be of service, what? So we can constantly be there and tell people how to live their lives? No. So we can help people understand that they've got access, just like you talked about just now. You're not accessing me and what I'm talking about. You're accessing the truths that are available. You're accessing the truths that we distill out of great spiritual teachings that come from A Course in Miracles and the Way of Mastery and Byron Katie's work and Diedrich Wolzek's work, etc. That's what you're accessing. You're not accessing Tim Hayes. You're just accessing wisdom. And remember, one of the things that we've talked about for a while now is wisdom cannot be possessed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, it can be accessed by anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be possessed, it can only be accessed, and it can be accessed by anyone.
Well, you know what's weird? They talked years ago in my training about transference and countertransference. And that's what you're talking about, is what I've made you mean to me. And that information is really useful. And it's sometimes very intense, because what do we project on people? The things we need to work out. And usually there's a lot of energy there. So I was thinking, well, here I've got this transference on Tim Hayes in real life. Let's put him to use. And it's just a phenomenon. I'm aware of that when I see a client. Sometimes a client will, be mad at me for something that isn't really me, or really like me and it isn't really me, and it's the same idea. Toward the end of the dream, you and I went for a walk, and I was amazed because I was the same height as you. And I thought, boom,
Perfect.
isn't that
Perfect.
great?
You've arrived.
Hey. Anyway, thank you very much. It was good.
Oh, it's delightful. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Take us up there and then just let us crash down.
No crashing. I mean,
That's lovely. That's just wonderful. And it fits perfectly with this idea that the Liz Gilbert letters from unconditional love, right?
mm-hmm,
And you sit down in the morning and you write, "Dear unconditional love, what would you have me know today?" And you write that at
mm-hmm,
the top piece of paper, and you give yourself 10 or 15 minutes to just respond as though the creator itself was flowing through you, giving you
nice.
direction.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same kind of thing that happens when you find, a loving parent or a mentor or a therapist. And then later on, when you're in your life, living your life, you hear their words and or
Yeah.
see their face or feel their energetic presence. Well, it's not them as an individual entity. It's just the collective consciousness. It's the connection of all these things. It's the office of the Christ mind, right? That every one of us can plug into. And that's the core of this work. This is about, well, I should say, for me, I should say, that's the core of my take on this work.
Right.
Because it isn't the same as everybody's, but
Mm-hmm.
it's it's to really understand that you have the power of Grayskull in you. The power
Yeah.
is in you. And if you turn inside, and it's the power not to create billions of dollars, but it's the power to create your own anger or to
Mm-hmm.
choose for joy instead, or the
Mm-hmm.
power to spin the kaleidoscopic wheel of interpretation until you land on something at least neutral, if not positive, about this
Right.
moment in your life and how you can respond.
God, I know I thought about that a lot this weekend because it was a very challenging weekend. A nephew who died too young of, throat cancer caused by smoking tobacco that he would roll himself, chain smoking, and isolated artist, brilliant, misunderstood from childhood, misguided in early elementary school, because he got A's if he was interested and F's if he wasn't. He ended up going to art school, did all 4 years, didn't choose to graduate because he didn't want to take English. So he never got his degree, and he didn't care. and he worked nights at Stop and Shop, and he made friends with all the other misfits. That's what he called them. And his house is a toxic zone, but it was filled with his artwork. And we don't quite know what to do with it. It isn't the kind of artwork you want to hang on the wall necessarily, because it's both political commentary and sometimes it has words that are not repeatable built right into them, but beautiful work. So here we are going through his life and having a million different feelings, appreciating him, missing him, sorry we didn't help him. We didn't pick up on who he was. He was just funneled through the system and he wouldn't fit. And so but we're up in Eastham, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. That's a pristine place with marshes that go forever into the Atlantic Ocean, and the beaches without a single piece of plastic on it. It's protected land. The people up there have made sure there's the Audubon Society and various conservation foundations, and my niece who lives there has been working as a volunteer in those organizations. We're walking in this heavenly place. And I read somewhere about one day on the beach is like worth a week of therapy, which I know you can't really compare the two, but there's something so rich and hearty and helpful and encouraging about nature. And then we're doing this mammoth. I mean, it took a brigade of us, and we're not done. My son and I just left. We had to get back home, we filled one incredibly big dumpster with stuff. So, and then I lie down and I get a session with Tim Hayes, and I wake up so happy. And it was, what the hell, So, but you emphasize from the Course in Miracles how we are creators. And I understood that this is both grace, because I'm putting it out there, but who's giving the grace? Well, it's happening inside here. And why, though? There are resources that have shored me up and many other people up to the point where we can just do that and be the creator of a better mood. It was the most, when you went on your vacation, I remember you kept saying, there are no words. I can't describe this, how wonderful it was. Can't put it into words. I feel the same way. There's no describing it. And it's all because it is the inside job. I can't understand how that works, but it is. Anyway, I better just calm down now and listen.
Well, thanks for recognizing that it's not my place to tell you to calm down. But it's interesting that you have the thought that you need to calm down, right? Because all I'm hearing is enthusiasm.
Yeah, well,
and listen, let's just listen. Remember how even just recently in Michael's show he's talking about entheos, right?
Okay.
In God. So enthusiasm means to bring your energy up to that level of gratitude, to be with your creator, etc. So notice how as soon as you get there, you say, oh, I better calm down.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a few more things to say then.
Then go ahead.
Down. All right. One thing that's true about being on the Cape is, well, my niece and I wake up very early. She's just like me, and she looks like me. We're like twins practically, and we go for walks as soon as the sun is coming up, as soon as it's light enough. We went to Nauset Beach. I don't know if any of you listening have been on that beach. It is just miles of the most beautiful shoreline, and the sun's coming up. And we're walking along, and it's hard work walking in sand if you go far enough. We went on a long walk to a lighthouse and came back, and gradually along the beach were similar people, like these sea beasts, these older women mainly, but some men, some with a beast like a dog or something, and some not. And there are
So,
seals,
so
huh?
you said sea bees?
Sea beast, animals, beasts. That's a phrase. My old therapist, Liz Lowald, I had her years ago. I've talked about her. She moved to Maine to be a sea beast, to
Okay, so
walk on the shore.
it's a reference to somebody who just loves the ocean and spends
Yeah,
time there.
yeah, walks along the shore. So
Okay.
these people gathered, and a bunch of my niece's friends showed up. And we began talking. And I'm going to put you in touch with one of them who is a photographer and a counselor and has her own practice. And I'm going to talk to her about just what she does. But if it fits, I'm going to put her in touch with you and invite her onto the radio show too, because she uses her art as a healing device for herself and other people. And I'm not sure how that works, but I'll be in touch there. But the whole thing was so rich. Two other women heard about my fitness class and they signed up. So what happened? I went there for one reason and got all these other things happening too. So I'm just telling you, whoa, it was just great. So I am
It's
telling.
wonderful, it's exciting, and you don't need to calm down.
Okay, but I
You can
might,
celebrate and enjoy.
yeah, okay, but I might mute and celebrate so that it doesn't get in the way of the reading. Anyway, the reading's great, and it's synchronous. It's just a fit. It fits.
Well, and think of it, like you've been here before in your own life.
Mm,
Now, you've been in situations like this because you've described them to us. Before you found this work, like 8 or 9 years ago, whatever it was, your life was far more tortured by anxiety than it is
mm,
today, right? You've talked about that.
yeah.
And and I would be willing to bet that you've been in certain situations like you were this past weekend where there's all of this beauty of the beach to
Mm,
see and pay attention to, and you can't focus on it at all, that you're so stuck in your head
mm,
with all of the upset about your nephew or the family dynamics or the I didn't do enough to save him, or do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I do.
You've been on that other shore. You've
Mm-hmm,
been, light years away from where you are, and
mm-hmm.
just look at how the fruit of your labors is paying off. That you can be there for this really unpleasant thing with a nephew that lost his life, and still slow down and pay attention to the beauty and the beach and the gratitude, and it's a choice. Other
Not only
people,
that,
go ahead. Not only that, but
I
what?
could. My niece, who doesn't use the tools, is like me before I started using the tools. She was one bag of anxiety to the point where she'd get hypoglycemic. She's eating every hour, stuffing herself so she doesn't have a meltdown. Very, very upset emotionally, not only about this, but she's been responsible for many people on the Cape, family members, and she's the most up and at 'em competent. She's a medical doctor who has retired, but was having such anxiety. And I'm walking along beside her. I say, Joe, give me some of that and breathe with me. Okay, breathe in, breathe out. And then she'd say, oh, sorry, I know I'm going nuts. And I said, you don't need to. We're here to help you. You have a family. You're not alone. All the stuff you keep saying, like allow and relax and breathe. I couldn't do a wake-up sheet with her, but it was sort of a constant invitation to watch my former self go bananas and be so glad I didn't have to go there anymore. And I thought I had to before. I thought that's what kept the world going.
Yes, yes, I still remember, and I've used it a number of times, how you said, I know it sounds crazy, but I really believe that my worrying keeps my son's plane in the air.
Right. Well, a lot of us do that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, the tools have been a lifesaver. And, but I'm very aware, like this woman that I want to have come on the show, who's the photographer, has found her tool. And one of the things that's so good about your show is you do the tools, but you bring in all sorts of approaches to how to be well, because temperaments vary and needs vary, and you acknowledge that over and over again, but your base is the tools. So
Yeah,
it's
and my interest is in helping people have a practical experience of the
mm-hmm,
benefit of using the tools.
yeah. But yet you bring in, like you're reading Guy Finley, and I suppose if we stick with it long enough, you'd end up doing a wake-up sheet with somebody or a mind shifter. But you're bringing health to people on different platters, like a banquet with different kinds of food or something. Maybe that
Well,
metaphor
I'm
wasn't
I'm
so
I'm
great.
I'm glad that you're finding it of use. Absolutely. That's what we say, and I'd like to say it practically every intro that, you know, the purpose I've chosen for being here, the intention is to be of service. And so every time I hear, oh, this is good. I'm helping. This followed me. This result, you know, is an improvement over what I've gotten in the past. I'm very happy with that. Thrilled.
Mm,
So thank you.
you're
Thank you for
welcome.
hanging in and listening. Thank you for using the tools, and thank you for letting us know that it's working for you.
It does. Okay, I'm going to mute Dr.
All
Tim.
right. All right. Go right ahead. Mute away. We've got a little time left, so I'll come back to reading them. From Guy Finley's new book, The Book of One, One Love, One Life, One Journey, with Dr. Ellen Dickstein. This last paragraph in this section reads, now the compassion is already there. Just giving people space to make their own mistakes, understanding that everyone suffers. And they do. Everyone suffers. Just understanding that we don't fix someone's suffering by explaining to them why they do, when all they're really trying to do is avoid our own suffering. We can begin to live in the, quote, presence moment, close quotes, which is what Guy Finley calls it is in which this distinction no longer exists between what life seems to be stirring in us and the recognition that it's stirring what it's stirring in us so that it can show us something we need to see about ourselves. See, we've been raised to believe life is happening to us. All these bad things happen around us and to us. And maybe because I'm doing something wrong. Why is this happening to me? I'm doing something wrong. The bottom line is, you're probably not doing anything wrong. And yet you may have an entirely unproductive set of interpretations or understandings for how life is unfolding and why it's unfolding. And you might be pouring your mind energy into that unproductive, false narrative, and that will keep you stuck. But waking up to the fact that whatever you feel in the moment is real. Guy Finley has a little poem he created about this. The feel is real, but the why is a lie. Your emotions are real and they're valuable, and yet they may not have anything to do with the meaning you've given them. I had an interaction with somebody recently where it was an escalation of frustrations and or fears and or hurts. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you can have the argument. You can go back and listen to an audio tape of it and figure out, well, who was the first one who had a tone of irritation come up in there in their voice. It doesn't really matter who was the first or who was the second, but eventually one person expresses with their tone, their volume, their pacing, maybe a direct statement, I'm frustrated. They express frustration, and then the other person expresses frustration. And if there's not a clear delineation within the individual and then shared with others about how I'm creating my own frustration, the other person is left to guess. And usually what they guess is, oh, they think I did something wrong, or they're mad at me. And then we just escalate back and forth, back and forth. But if we understand, if we train ourselves to awaken to the fact that we are the ones that create every emotion we experience, then when we start to feel upset, we take that breath and turn the focus inside. Now we get clear about how we're creating frustration. If we're then willing to offer that to the other person and say, I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware that my tone has this, tension in it and I'm feeling some frustration, and I don't want you to think it's about you. Here's what's going on for me. Or the story I'm telling myself now is ... And you can break the cycle, because the fact of the matter is, yes, there's frustration there, but no, it's not really about what I think it's about. And if there's frustration coming out of another person, it's got nothing to do with me. Not that it's mostly them, it's completely them. Despite anything I might have done, even if I'm over here being the world's best gaslighter, I'm not creating frustration in that person. They're creating their own frustration by trying to make sense of something that I'm putting out here that doesn't make any sense. And they can choose to stop that and quit trying to make sense of it and just walk away from me because I'm over here trying to make them believe that they can't perceive reality accurately. The bottom line is, the more I can work to wake up to the fact that I'm the one that creates everything I experience internally, and that I can choose, as Guy Finley said earlier in this section, I can choose to learn to change my consciousness, to leap into higher awareness. And it's that thing that, Michael Ryce likes to talk about, stepping back and becoming the observer apart from the observed, the thinker apart from the thoughts, the feeling apart from the feeler. It's what Michael Singer talks about, taking a step back into the seat of observation, the seat of the soul, the seat of consciousness, and watching your thoughts as though they were happening to someone else. And understanding that your thoughts and the flow of thoughts through your mind are not who you are. They're simply something you can observe. And so your essence, who you are, is that which can step back and observe from a complete space of equanimity and neutrality. So Guy Finley is talking about, if in the moment when you have a strong reaction to something, you take a step and realize you're creating that inside of you. You wake up and realize that nothing you do with the outside world in that moment is going to produce any solution to the suffering, and that the focus on the external is what keeps the suffering rolling. But to transcend the self that suffers over anything that it sees as being outside of itself, in other words, the self that believes it's separate, right? The self that we've constructed from decades of rehearsing, believing our own thoughts and creating our own perceptions and believing they're the same as the actuality of life. That's a mess we've created. That's a bunch of veils. That's really dark glasses we're looking through. But when we do that and interrupt the cycle, and we don't act as though the people outside of us are causing our upset, we open up infinite possibilities for connection and healing, etc. Guy Finley says, now the compassion is already there, just giving people the space to make their own mistakes, understanding that everyone suffers, and they do. understanding that we don't fix anyone's suffering by explaining to them why they're suffering, when all we're really trying to do is end our own suffering. We can begin to live in the presence moment, the presence in which this distinction no longer exists between what life seems to be stirring in us and the recognition that it is stirring things up in us to reveal something to us that we need to see to move forward in our lives. What we need to see about ourselves is not that there's something wrong with ourselves, but rather to see that the moment where life has come and said, quote, "It's all right. I'm asking you in this moment, will you accept what I want to give you?" Close quotes. If we learn to say yes to that, then we can begin to participate in a completely different order of our own lives, in which we don't punish ourselves or anyone else anymore. If we can learn to say yes when life comes along and says, "I'm asking you in this moment, will you accept what I want to give you?" In another of Guy Finley's talks, he says, it's really useful to try and move your life forward, to grow personally or spiritually. It's really useful if you decide that you're going to take this approach whenever anything happens, whether it's something somebody says or something somebody doesn't say or do, whenever anything happens and you find upset coming up in you, intense emotional upset, you could choose in that moment the following interpretation. Oh, look, life is saying to me, "Hey, Tim, in this moment, would you like to see what's keeping you from knowing me and loving me more fully?" Right now, every time I get upset, I could choose that interpretation. Oh, I'm in error in my thoughts, and my thoughts are keeping me from knowing and loving life more fully right now. I could choose to spin the kaleidoscopic wheel of interpretation until it comes up neutral at best, or at least neutral, and perhaps even positive. If I find a positive interpretation for something and I pour my mind energy into it, I'm going to feel the resultant positive change in my physical experience. So, a kaleidoscopic wheel of interpretation. We have to start changing not what we're looking at, but we have to start changing what is looking. I have to start changing the part of me that generates all of these upsets. Because all it's doing is spinning the same old past upsets and the same old past emotions over and over again without any progress, without any growth, without any increased flexibility or tolerance or stamina. I just keep repeating the same thing and it wears me down. I keep repeating the same cycle and it keeps me stuck in the same lack of growth. Keeps me stagnant. So that's all I'll read today from the book because it's the start of another section on Guy Finley's book, The Book of One Love, One Life, One Journey. And I guess we're about a quarter of the way through the book. And we'll keep reading and we'll keep sharing the quotes from other great thinkers, philosophers.
I have a thought. This is Sally. I want to say that I celebrate Susan's dream. That was reminded me of a similar experience I had where it was so wonderful I hardly wanted to wake up. The other thing, I wanted to thank you for reading this book. I'm busy taking notes. He has packed so much in that book. And of course, having been listening to Guy Finley a lot in the last 5 months, it sort of weaves together the foundation building, and again, I'm just thanking you. Thank you.
You're entirely welcome and deserving. Thank you for being here. Your participation is always enjoyed. I had some thoughts in there about, they'll probably be better off talking more about it in the support group if you're able to attend in the near future. But it's about some of the comments I've heard you make that are decidedly self-limiting at best.
Thank you.
Let me put it that way.
Thank you. And I canceled sailing tonight. I had been on crew to sail tonight, and it was between sailing or Tim's support group. And I kept feeling my inner compass was saying Tim's support group. And the end of the season, beautiful day part was saying sailing. So I have now canceled the sailing. So I will be at the support group, and I look forward to hearing from you about that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk more then, and I will appreciate your willingness to give up sailing, which been one of my loves in my life. So I appreciate the reference. All right, it is a Tuesday. There will be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 Central Time. Come one, come all. It's free. All the information you would need on how to join us is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessings.